Thank you for joining us on this lovely Wednesday. Well, by the time this comes up, it'll be afternoon usually. By the time the 4K finishes processing, whenever why?
Just going into the details of it. That's so funny.
Well, that's usually what ends up
It's
happening
the reality. No, I know.
because it triggers everything triggers an upload when the
Yeah.
4K video finishes processing.
Okay.
Everything else sits in queue until that 4K finishes. Once the 4K finishes, then everything just kind of bloop, pops out into the world.
Mm, wild.
It is wild, especially when you have to process into 4K, but that's neither here nor there right now.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not talking about the intricate background details of how I do video and audio editing. Instead, what we're here to talk about is everyone's fascination with the end of the world that's coming up, apparently soon, maybe.
Just like 2012.
Yeah, except, okay, unlike 2012, because 2012,
It was just the end of the Mayan calendar.
it was the end of the Mayan calendar, or you have all these false Christian pastors out there who will go, well, the Bible, if you do the math you do the math of these verses and that, then that means this year and then this, and then and somehow they get a date that comes and passes and da da da.
Mhm.
There's no date associated with it, and
Oh, no.
primarily what they're talking about, but they're saying, hey, this is a symbol that the end of times is coming.
Right.
So do you know what they're talking about is what the big fur of the end of times signal is right now?
I guess my thought would be like the Third World War
Well, Third World War, yes, but something
or
specifically that's happening over in Israel.
well, there's a war happening in Israel right now.
Right, but even more specific than a war, it's not a war that people are all concerned about and jumpy about. They've been talking about this for like the last 4 years now,
Okay.
at
Is
least, and a little bit more than that. There was a video actually circulated from like 2022, like around this time of 2022, saying, "Oh, in about a year and a half, they'll be ready." It's something from the Old Testament times. The only 9 of these have been found from about the time of Moses to about 70 AD. Only 9 of them had been
no,
sacrificed ever.
I know you're getting into the red heifer.
Exactly.
So,
The red heifer. Why is that important? Especially in Jewish tradition, in Jewish scholarship, that they're
mm,
saying this is the sign of Armageddon. And it leads into why Christians are also going, well, yeah, this is could be the start of the end.
hmm, I'm mm,
What about the red heifer?
that I guess I'd
Okay, so let me ask you this: what in Old Testament times, what was the red heifer used for?
sacrifices.
But what type of sacrifice?
Was it? And this is where I was wondering, is it like a piece?
No.
Because when we were doing that Revelation study, I remember it being mentioned like one of the last things that has to happen
Mhm.
before the end, or per se, is a peace treaty.
Right, so a peace treaty, yes,
Mhm.
but what precedes the peace treaty?
So is it some sort of sacrifice?
No. I
No.
did the sacrifice has to happen, but there's something else has to happen. What has to be rebuilt?
Oh, the temple.
Right.
Yeah.
So, per Judaism, per the Jewish text and rabbis and scholars and that, right? In order for them to build the 3rd temple,
Mhm.
they first need a red heifer, because the ashes of the red heifer,
Mm.
the
Okay.
ashes are combined with living water, water that's moving, flowing from like a river and that, to create essentially the ceremony to purify and cleanse.
Hmm. Okay.
So, as part of the whole temple building process and that and
Mhm.
everything, they would use the ashes of the red heifer to
To
purify
purify it.
and cleanse the priests and that who would go to serve at the temple.
Hmm.
And in according to Jewish scholarship, before they can build the 3rd temple, they need another red heifer to sacrifice to be able to cleanse the priests and that to be able
Mhm.
to cleanse and build the temple up.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. This is the first group of red heifers in about 2,000 years. Now, when I say group of red heifers, I'm not talking about red heifers in general, because what has to be about them?
But
What's
no,
true about all
there's
sacrifices?
no blemish,
Nope.
clean or whatever, like, is the best of the best
Right.
sort of thing
So
without
they can't
blemish.
even have a hair that's of a different color.
Just like a
They can only
pure.
have red hair. That's it. So they can't have one red white hair, one black hair, nothing. Okay.
Mhm.
Also, heifer, what does that mean? Age wise.
Old? No. No.
No, not
That's
not
no.
old,
That's
but at least 2 to 3 years old.
yeah.
So that way they've had time to grow up. And if they were to grow any sounds weird to say inerrant hair, you know,
Yeah, right,
you know,
yeah.
hair
If
that's not
there's
red,
yeah.
there'd be sufficient time for any of that to grow in.
Mhm.
Also, these heifers cannot have suffered the yoke at any time.
Right. Yep.
They can't even like be leaned against.
Really?
Like
Just nothing.
nothing. The only movement that you can push on, like that you can kind of force on these animals is for their own well-being. Like if they're
Okay.
about to like walk off a cliff,
Yeah, you can
you can go and push them to keep them from
yeah,
doing
keep
that,
yeah.
but you can't be like, "You're in my way. Move."
Move.
Really.
I'm sorry. I'm so yes,
So
but
you couldn't do like that, but, if they were about to, again, walk off like a cliff or walk into danger, you could go and
save them
move them.
from that.
Yep.
Okay. 'Cause yeah, well, I don't know. I was talking to mom about it, and then we looked up and there's, like, the passage in Numbers about the red heifer.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
mhm,
And that's where that comes from, kind of that the whole concept of that they're used for ritual purification.
mhm. So, okay. I didn't realize that was well, part of it.
Yeah, so
Forgot about that.
they definitely that they've been waiting like 2,000 years.
That's
So
crazy.
there have been 9 red heifers sacrificed in this manner since Moses to the time of 70 AD, about when the destruction of the second temple was.
Wow.
So the ashes of the red heifer, they're combined with the water. That
Yes.
creates what's called the water of lustration.
Lustration.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that mixture was applied by dipping into it and sprinkling on the 3rd and 7th days after defilement. Defilement was acquired by touching a corpse, a grave, or a human bone, or by being under the same roof with any of those.
Okay.
The priest, the gatherer of the ashes, the sprinkler, and the one who touched the water of lustration became unclean until evening because of its association with death. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that go in there. I'll put some links in there. If one of the ones that I found that was kind of pretty cool, it's called the Jewish Virtual Library.org,
Hmm.
where they go over all these Jewish traditions and that. And they go into depth and explain, and they even link into the Old Testament, because obviously Jewish people believe that the Old Testament is the part of their Bible, but they also link into their rabbinical teachings as well,
Okay.
which are obviously extra canonical. You know what that means, right?
No, I was just about to look up the word is it lustracious?
Lustration. Yeah.
Lustration. Lustration ritual. Okay. So I'm sorry, what was that last one you just said for the word
Extra canonical.
extra canot
Yeah.
extra canot? Wow,
Yeah.
I can't even say it. Con
Well, what's canonical mean? When we're talking about biblical text.
canonical?
Yeah. When we say that the Old Testament, New Testament are canon, we're saying they're canonical. That means that they are the accepted authoritative word.
I've never heard canonical before.
Yeah. You've heard canon though, right?
Yes. So
Canon,
so it's the
canonical.
same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Canon. All right.
So
Um, yes.
teachings by rabbis are extra canonical, meaning they're not from canon, they're extra. But in the Jewish tradition, they're treated, pretty high up there still. They're taught as authoritative essentially. So that's that's why I liked like this here because they kind of go into it quite a bit and they say, "Hey, this is why the red heifer is so important."
Yeah.
Okay? Now, you know where they got so in Israel right now, they
Okay.
got I think it's 5 red heifers they're talking about, but like one that like meets the criteria so far.
Dang.
Okay. You know where they got these heifers from?
No.
Texas.
What?
They imported them from Texas.
What? Okay, so they don't have to like be from, I
No.
guess, the land per se. They can be from anywhere.
Yeah, but there's some rules about like when they have to acquire them and how they have to acquire them, and like there's some rules around that
Mhm.
that they have built in. So
What?
these
Mm.
heifers were acquired by the Temple Institute.
Okay.
The Temple Institute is a group of people, Jews included, who basically are working to rebuild the next temple. So like they're actively intervening to do things like they're seeking out the red heifers. They're caring for the heifers. They're, checking them. They even bought a plot of land because where the red heifer has to be sacrificed, there's a very precise location where it has to be done.
Okay.
It has to be done on the Mount of Olives, by the way, and it like overlooks to like where the old temple would be, like a certain entrance of the temple. So
Okay.
that's where it is. Guess what? They purchased that land 12 years ago in preparation
For this.
for this. Like they're looking forward to this because their belief, according to some sources, not all of them, but according to some, rabbi teachers, is that, and here's where it gets crazy, and here's where it starts going into the wow, okay, what is that the Messiah will be the one to sacrifice the 10th red heifer.
The Messiah.
That's according to some of the rabbi teachings.
Really?
Yeah.
So tell me how that one works.
Exactly. Well, if you see into the whole pattern of red heifer
Mhm.
bringing about the next temple, which brings about the unified world religions, which brings about the Antichrist. How do you what do you think who's do you think is gonna sacrifice that red heifer? That's all speculation, obviously. Things are
Right.
gonna play out how they play out. But
Right.
when I was reading through that, and then some of the
Um,
rabbis were suggesting it's gonna be the Messiah that sacrifices that 10th red heifer,
hmm.
and we're at 9 right now that have already been sacrificed. So the next one that's and they're like, "Well, we're planning on sacrifice it on Passover 2024."
What? What?
Yeah.
What?
So I'm like, I hope that one rabbi is completely wrong,
Right.
so it doesn't bring about, you know, all the crazy of
The
it.
end of the world. Well,
We'll get into that in a minute,
yeah.
that's a whole other
Yeah.
conversation, there. But yeah, I just sat there back for a second, I was like, "Hold on a minute. What?"
Wow. I love how it like okay, so this is like the first I'm hearing of all of this. Like obviously all the only thing I've heard about is like the war going on. I wish this kind of stuff would hit the news
Well
because it's like, whoa.
what else do you see in Revelation that happens? It hasn't happened yet, but what else do you see what happens in Revelation? All the nations of the world rise up against Israel.
Oh, okay. I'm like, wait, okay. Yeah. But
Right
so does
now,
that mean we have to then though?
as I say, right now, the United States is still
We're still
aligned.
backing. We're
Yeah,
still backing
but
them.
something might happen where all of a sudden we
It's like,
go,
forget you guys. Nope.
yeah.
Dude.
So I was going over that and I was just like, Oh, that is ooh, it's like we're so
We
close.
are so close. Just takes one silly person to be in America and be like, "No."
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
Rabbi and I'm just gonna say the rabbi's last name because there's no way I'm saying the first name.
Okay, okay.
It's like
Wow.
Yitzchak. I'm sorry. I'm horrible with English names. No. Rabbi Mamo, Mamo.
Mamo.
Yeah, and that first name that I couldn't pronounce because
Say normally the last name is supposed to be the hard one to
yeah.
pronounce. What the heck? Okay.
From so there's multiple groups out there that are trying to build the third temple.
Mhm.
But so he's from the third temple group, Uvni Jerusalem. Okay.
Uvni.
U
U
UVNE.
UVNE.
Okay.
Uvni. Uvni.
He told the Christian Broadcasting Network that he has planned a ceremony for Passover 2024 to slaughter the imported heifers, assuming they have not developed any blemishes before them. You know, the ones that brought
Yeah.
in from Texas.
See, okay, yeah. All right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mamo said he bought a plot of land overlooking the Temple Mount 12 years ago, specifically in hopes in using it for the slaughter ceremony and beginning preparations for the third temple's construction. In Jewish tradition, the long prayed for epoch can only come once the temple has been built and purified, and they believe it is up to them. The
Well,
heifers, they did come from farmers in the US and Texas.
mhm.
They were evangelical Christians who supported the Jewish efforts to rebuild the third temple.
So, I guess now, as far as so from the for the heifers coming from Texas,
Okay.
how I guess how because you said something about like not being yoked or whatever.
Right.
How do you do that to get them to move from Texas to
Well, so they
so what I guess what are the guidelines that go into that then?
so the heifers that they brought over
Yeah.
are probably not going to be the ones that are going to be sacrificed. They'll probably be their
So
offspring.
their offspring.
Yep. And because these have been bred specifically to be pure red
Oh my gosh.
in Nebraska and Texas, with the help of the farmers and the corresponding groups that want to bring about the third temple,
So,
they have been
okay.
genetically selected to
Right.
be as pure red as possible. And even then, that's still kind of like odd for them to have like no like white or black fur or something like that.
Yeah.
So
But so I guess so that makes it clear then. Like I guess they're in the clear if they've been I guess you could say I don't know. What like they're trying to make it happen.
yeah,
Oh man. Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
these are groups actively pursuing the third temple to be
Mhm.
built.
Hmm.
It's not like they're just sitting back and waiting. And uh,
Eventually it'll happen.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was talking with who was I was talking with?
I don't know.
Think it was Andy.
Which one? Just kidding.
Think it was Andy, from church.
Which one?
Fair. He was talking about how there are, like, groups out there that basically they have all the materials ready for the third temple, they're just waiting for everything else to
To
fall in place.
fall in line, yeah.
And then I was listening to some other places, and they're like, because you know the Temple Mound, right? What's there
Mm,
now?
what's this? Oh, I don't know. I don't. I don't know.
So the Temple Mound, the former site of the second temple,
Mhm.
is currently home to what? Dome of the Rock and Al Aqsa Mosque. It's currently a Muslim mosque there.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so there's this, like, I don't know if you wanna what you wanna call it, like, this joint venture essentially between, Israel and the Muslims,
Mhm.
where like people because like the West Wall, the West Wall that's talked about. People talk about that's in the Old Testament and all that too, or not in the Old Testament, Revelation.
Okay.
That's part of Revelation that where the witnesses at the West Wall essentially. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, right now, what's happening is that Jews, Israelis, aren't able to go up to the West Wall. Why? Because it's attached to part of this mosque area where they're not
Okay.
supposed to go.
Okay.
So Israeli security forces work with them and all this sort of stuff. But I was listening to someone else, this teacher from Israel was teaching, and he was saying, "Well, the reason we don't go up there goes because we haven't been purified. We can't
So
go and
once
rebuild the
they've
temple because we haven't been
yeah,
purified. We
so
need the red heifer to be purified."
purified. Oh, man.
And once they are purified, then he's like, "We already got 9 priests that have never been in an area with death, ready to go once we rebuild the temple." In other words,
How do you do
these
that?
people were born at home. They can't be born in a hospital
'Cause death.
because of death.
Right.
It remains there. So they're born at home. They've been homeschooled essentially. Like they followed all the Old Testament laws to a T. The only thing they're
How do you
missing is that red heifer.
That's incredible, that wow.
And if you go into some of the stuff that they were doing, like back in the old days, because they're like, oh, they need to get the water, right? Well, how do you go get the water? Because they even believe in old ancient Jewish traditions that, like, let's say you, Aaron, were designated to go get the water, right?
Okay.
But then you walked into a graveyard by accident. Okay.
No good.
You would be defiled. Because you're defiled, the water you carried would also be defiled.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, how do we do this? And I was reading through it, and there was some interesting things that they would do. They would, in certain areas, they would build like these basically communities in areas where people would live, and they'd build it all an inch. Like there'd be an inch gap between the building structure and the ground. So you can do that with buildings, right? Because they believed that the impure wouldn't be able to travel up that inch.
So okay, but
Because you're an inch off the ground,
no,
then
okay.
then people would go give birth there, their kids would grow up there, and then they'd be the ones to go fetch the water. Even
Hmm.
and then again, they don't have everything, so they're extrapolating at this point. They're like, well, some believe that they would even not even get off their animal to get the water. They would just lower it down into the ground, pull it up, and
But then isn't that just as bad? Alright, and weird. That's
well,
okay.
because in the ancient day, you didn't quote unquote bury someone in the water.
Okay.
So that they're like, well, there's no issue of the water being contaminated because you wouldn't bury someone in the water, so it wouldn't have dead people in it.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
What about dead animals?
there's some definitely some interesting things to read there that I was
Yeah.
going through and reading. And like I'm pulling this from the Temple Institute
Mhm.
website, and I'm like,
Okay.
what the heck?
Yeah, that's I'm gonna have to man, I'm gonna have to I'm curious to, like, really dig into some of this. This is wild.
Yeah, if you're definitely interested in hearing any more, like reading a lot about this more, the templeinstitute.org, that's one of the groups that wants to build the third temple. Like they have all the Jewish and rabbinic teachings on the red heifer and Judaism and like how this all ties together. They tied back into numbers and everything.
Mhm.
Numbers 19 specifically.
Okay,
They
so
tie
okay.
it all back into that. They tie it all together and they're like, this is why we want to see the new red heifer be sacrificed, and this is what we want to do, and this is how we can build a third temple. And I'm like, "Well, okay."
We're running towards it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just
Man.
like, "Oh my goodness." It's like, that is just weird. But some
S
things did stick out to me while I was reading through it that made me go, "Man, you can see how they have taken, what God has, ordained and said, and they have made it such a human thing."
Okay, yeah.
So, for example, this, and the first few words will tell you
Uh-oh.
exactly what I mean, and you'll understand immediately. Some opinions
Okay.
maintain that the newer ashes of the red heifer, were always mixed together with a combination of the previous ashes. One way of understanding this is to view the mixture of old and new ashes as being another precautionary measure, a kind of insurance policy, and the kind of insurance policy that the new ashes were made in the correct way to be able to purify. So they mix them with the old, so that way the
S
old can purify the new, and then the new can purify.
but so wait, how they still have old ashes? Like, wait, what?
Yeah, they wouldn't you like use all the ashes at once, like
No, but I guess I'm thinking for old ashes, like, I'm like
old.
old
Well, again,
ashes.
if they only did 9 red heifers between the years of Moses and 70 AD,
Right.
yeah,
Those ashes.
those ashes. Yeah, red heifer ashes.
They still have those? How do you hold on to hold on to that for so
Yeah,
long?
so they probably don't have any more at this point
Okay, that's why I was like,
because
"Wait, what?"
otherwise they would use them to build the 3rd temple.
Oh, yeah, they could just do that.
Yeah, they probably were, one of those things of destroyed when the 2nd temple was destroyed sorta
Right.
deal.
Okay. Alright, because I was just like, "Wait, mixing old ashes with the new ones." I was
Yeah,
like,
they're talking
"Huh?"
about when they were doing the ashes, like
Okay. Okay. I was thinking quite literal.
yeah.
Jeez, man. Okay.
Yeah, so, like I said, go ahead and read through that, and even the, Jewish Virtual Library, they even say in their teaching, in their information that the 9th heifer will be prepared by the Jewish Messiah. So,
The Jewish Messiah, huh?
I have to say Jewish Messiah because we know the Messiah already came, but the Jews
Right.
reject that, so they believe that the Jewish Messiah will be the one that prepares and sacrifices the 10th heifer.
Mm.
And what's funny, like, listening to all this, there's so many conspiracy theories, like, there's conspiracy theories with everything else in the world nowadays, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, all the bombing and going on in Israel and Gaza,
Mhm.
I've actually heard this from someone, he's like, "What if all the bombing was just to hide the fact that we just sacrificed the 10th red heifer, and we did it in secret so that way the Muslims wouldn't know?" I'm like,
Alright. Alright.
'cause they're like "What would you not look for in the middle of all the bombings? Fire." I'm like, "Seriously, dude? That's your
Hey,
that's your claim?"
he might be onto something.
Except, it probably wouldn't have been done the proper traditional way and according to Jewish custom and law that needed to be done.
So then it's no good,
Exactly.
but okay.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. I would recommend go reading it because, like, there's a lot to the ritual, like, um, so when they have the heifer there,
Mhm.
like, the priest, who's doing the sacrifice or not the priest, but whoever's doing the sacrifice is supposed to be, like, turn to, like, the face the 3 different sides of the crowd and be like, "Hyssop," and the crowd's supposed to answer, "Hyssop," and the crowd's supposed to answer, then, "Hyssop," and the crowd's supposed to answer, and they do that for every, like, little piece of the ritual.
Oh, okay.
So, for, like, every little thing that they use, they would, like, show it to the crowd, say the name of it, and then the crowd's supposed to say, like, "Yes," and, basically confirm that
Right, that this is
that's what to use and then
wow,
there's a
so this is a
lot of
big
ritual that goes on with this. This is a big deal.
yeah,
And of course, back in the Old Testament, it was a big thing. It was a big that's how you purified,
mhm,
you know. That's one of those things where like you okay, I'm gonna go morbid here. Let's say you wake up one day, right?
mhm,
And you find one of your parents dead upstairs.
right,
By Jewish tradition and law, you would be defiled and unclean just because you were in the same building. Not because you had done anything, just because you were
I
in the
was
same.
there.
So
Wrong place, wrong time.
so you would have to be purified by,
Sacrifice.
well,
Well,
sacrifice or by the ash
yeah,
and water mixture
yeah,
of
the red heifer.
the red heifer.
Dude. Oh, I oh, man. This is insane. But okay, so now this is I this was on my mind earlier.
Yeah.
But so they plan to do this thing in 2024, you said.
That's what one of the groups is planning, yeah.
When did they get the calves or the red heifers or whatever from Texas?
They didn't say when because they actually keep them in a secret location
Of course.
because they don't want them to be. Because here's the thing, right?
Mhm,
If you were in the area and you knew that that was happening,
mhm. I could
you could go and lean on them,
yeah,
and it's
and
something as simple as that.
then it's over.
Yeah,
Because I guess, like, I just wonder, like, depending on how long ago if when they got them, I was like, you'd still have to wait. I guess that's going off of the whole thing of, you're saying they're looking for their offspring.
yeah,
Um,
and the offspring will be the one that's gonna be, like, 3 years old and, like
right.
like,
So
it turned 3, like, October 15th of this year.
oh, so they've had them for some time.
Yeah, they've had 'em for a few years now.
Okay. Alright. That's what I was 'cause, like, if they have to wait for new ones to be born
No,
okay, so no, they've already Hmm.
no, this one is, like, we're talking it's of age now.
To be slaughtered.
It has passed all the tests, as far as they found no flawed hairs on it or anything.
So do you think this event will be a big news thing?
When it happens, oh, I'm sure it will be.
You think so?
Yeah. One of the rabbis I was listening to was saying that because they've had red heifers born before that
Okay.
were potentials.
Right.
Eventually, they did end up growing like a white hair or something like that, so they were disqualified, right?
Mhm.
But they're like, yeah, when this has been announced before, like the likes like Hamas and that in the area would say we need to shoot the heifer because
They
they know that if it is the red heifer to be sacrificed and it does usher in the third
temple.
temple, what
Yeah.
happens?
Is that well, okay, I'm thinking, is that the whole, like, the whole peace treaty stuff going
Well,
on or
no. Again, where's the temple going to be built at? Temple on the
Jer
Mount.
yeah?
What is there now?
Jer oh, the wow. The mo
I just dun, 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 dun.
the mosque thing, or
Right.
right, so
So
that's
what
gonna be torn down, or
exactly.
and they don't
And
want you
and
don't
that
want
is
that.
one of the most well, I shouldn't say one of the most holy. That is
It
like the most holy spot for them.
yeah, and for that to be taken away, that's that's not something that they want. Oh, obviously, they don't want to happen,
Right.
so they're gonna fight for that. Okay. What the heck?
Exactly. So there'll be, issues with that.
Man, so
What?
much stuff starts to make more sense now. Once you know stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not Mecca, because Mecca is kind of where the devout Muslims will pray towards,
Okay.
but it's still one of their holy sites. Temple on the was it what did I say it was? Uh Dome of the Rock.
Dome of the Rock. I'll look that one up too.
You got a lot to look up.
I do. I have so much.
You always have things to look up.
Yes, I do. So where do I begin?
So the Dome of the Rock is the world's
Yes.
oldest surviving work of Islamic architecture.
Wow.
So, that area will have to be kind of torn down in order for
The temple to be rebuilt.
yeah.
I mean, I can understand why they'd be mad.
So there's things there that, you know, again, and then you read Revelation, what's gonna all happen there, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, we're in for a world of fun,
A
potentially."
lot of hurt. A
Yep.
lot of pain. That's I guess that goes into the whole, what was it, like, the belief of, like, when was it the rapture happens or whatever and all that kinda stuff?
Yep.
'Cause, man, that's gotta be just, like, chaotic.
In one sense of the word, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's I'm like, all this stuff going on about Israel, and then, when you hear about
So
the war stuff, and then you hear
right.
this coming out too, and I'm like, "Alright, maybe we're getting close to the end." I'm like, "Well, I'm not worried
I
about
mean,
that,
we
but"
always are technically getting closer to the end, obviously,
yes,
but
but
so, I guess no, no, that's, I guess, another thought of, like, how many times has it been close to the end?
yeah, fair enough. I guess we'll see what happens if they actually go through with this sacrifice of the red heifer or not.
Dude, there's so much more to pay attention to than just, I mean, I don't even pay attention to the US news that much, much less world news.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like something to be like, "Oh, I gotta be worried and the end of the
Mm,
world's coming, da 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 da." But
that definitely
but as I say, but keeping, just keeping look at what's happening.
yeah. I feel
Know
like
know what happens in Revelation and that, but, personally, I wouldn't be, like, all consumed by it, because if you're all consumed by it, you're just gonna be paralyzed in the fear to doing nothing.
well, that's what I was just thinking, I was like, "Man, that should, like, hearing some of this stuff going on, that should, like, urge Christians to be more active."
Yeah. But
'Cause
some
it's like,
people might break them into fear, and they just sit there and like,
"All right," and do nothing.
yeah,
'Cause, man, I mean, that is a thing where, I mean, it's was it no one knows the day or time of when the Lord will come back.
exactly.
Only God knows that. Well, God the Father specifically, but
Yep.
oh my goodness, that's wow. That is insane. Oh, I'm excited for us, for this, the May we're for the young adults group or whatever for church, we're getting, dude, I'm totally bringing this up to the young adults group. Like, this is nuts, man.
Yeah.
Definitely something to study and dig into.
Yeah, so what, like I said, one of the groups is planning, like I said, like, their plan is 2024 if
And that
not
is
nothing goes wrong.
now,
Passover 2024.
help me on this, 'cause I've heard, like, and I think it's been, like, from guys from, like, the Daily Wire or whatever. I can't remember if it's just one specifically or if it's been a couple of the guys that, like, have popped up and I've just watched, but they talk about this year being the year of our Lord sort of thing. Is there, like, this is, like, the first I've ever been hearing that phrase thrown around. I'm like, "What is the significance of that, and why did
I've
they
heard
start
that
saying
I've
that?"
heard that, like, every
You
year.
have? Okay, I have, alright, I've never heard
Yeah,
that,
that
and
that even outside, like, Daily Wire and that, like, I hear that,
really?
like
Okay.
they'll say 2012, the year of our Lord. In other words,
Okay,
what they're saying
okay.
is 2012, um, before they did the BCE thing and ACE thing, because
I
now
don't remember what the E part stood for.
before Common Era. So before it was, like, before
Oh,
Christ, now
yeah,
it's before
okay.
so I've heard it referenced that way, like 2012,
Okay.
year of our Lord. In other words, it's 2012, the year after
Okay.
Christ.
I wasn't sure because, like, I've never heard that until recently. I'm like, "What? Why am I just now hearing that phrase?"
Yep.
I was like, "What?" So, okay, that makes sense. Alright. Jeez. There's a lot going on in this world right now. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
there's been a lot going on in this world right now, but
So yeah, I'll make
Oof.
sure to link to the Temple Institute stuff because
Mhm.
there's a lot of interesting things in there about like the sacrifice, what the preparation process is, the rules for buying the heifer, and how to purify the impure, and all that from this. And I just look at, it, I'm just like, man, all this, like, yes, the original thing about like the red heifer and use for purification, that is found in the Bible, where we
Mhm.
can trace that back to Moses. Some will even say, I read this commentary from a rabbi, is like, this is basically to counterbalance the golden calf. Essentially, is why it's a red
Oh, that's
heifer.
wha okay.
And I was like, wow, we're
Nice.
really reading into this now. Um, but as I'm going through it, I'm reading through it, I'm just like, man, have taken so much human teaching into it
Yeah,
and made it just such a bigger thing than God
than it
made it.
is.
And yes, God said, use the red heifer, use it to purify your people
Mhm.
for going in and serving in the temple. But we've added so much more on top of it. It's like,
Of course.
wow.
That's what we're good at.
Now, if you do read stuff on the Temple Institute, just do be aware. Um, they are, because they are Jewish and that here, they do not use the O in whenever you see the word God. You'll see G dash D. That they have such a thing that where they won't even say the word God. So it'll be G dash D because then they're not really saying the word or writing the word. It's just their way of
Interesting.
being respectful. So if you're like reading through and you're like, wait, what? And
Mhm.
that's what it means.
Wow.
So
And over here, it's used for nothing.
yeah,
All the worst ways.
it's used in a bunch of expletives.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a few times I've heard it. Many times I've heard it that way.
That just awoke in my throat, my
Uh,
bronchial tubes. They're very irritated.
so yeah, if you haven't read much on the Red Heifer, maybe go read. Don't be like so concerned that you like sell everything and you're like, oh, the end's coming. Ah. Because that's still maybe whenever.
But it is happening.
That's not up to us when it happens.
No, but it's coming, whether
So
we want it or not.
exactly. So anything else you want to add, question, say?
Yeah, I gotta do some reading first, but yeah,
Well,
I'll definitely have
I got some links
some.
for you.
Oh, great.
I got the Jewish Independent Newspaper. I have the Temple Institute and their stuff. I have the Mirror.uk. I have Jewish Virtual Library, the Times of Israel. Yeah. So I got that, a couple more that I can send you over, and I'll include those on this as well that all talk about the red heifer and the importance of it and how people would raise people in the past to be able to raise kids to go and do this as well. And the links people would go to in the past, such as, when a woman was about to give birth, they would go to a special community, give birth, and raise a child there till they're about 8. So they would never be in an area of death. So those children can go and get the
How do
water
you how do you do that?
1 inch off the ground, sir. 1 inch
1
off the
inch
ground.
on 1 inch off the ground. That yeah, that's wild to me
Yeah, that is.
how they can
So
make that
next week,
happen.
we're going to talk about something a little more uplifting than this.
Hopefully.
We're going to talk about depression as found in the song uh, Cold World by Red.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
We'll see you later. Bye.